Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Nissan Gandhi, and I am the organizer of today's meetup. Learn Python Programming has been organizing Python meetups where we try to explore new kind of tools, technology, and stuff that we can do with the Python. Mostly about software engineering using Python and different aspect of software engineering. Sometimes it's about writing test, sometimes it's about routing API, sometimes about testing, and learning about advanced Python stuffs and anything that touches the Python, we basically try to explore together. And for today's meetup, we are going to learn about writing the test for Flask applications. So uh, basically what we're going to do is we're going to build a small Flask app, and then we're going to try to test functionality. And along the way, I will also talk about writing the Flask app, different aspect of how you design your applications, and at the end how you organize your test and write your test. So before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, InterSystems. And today we have a couple of representatives from InterSystems. We're going to talk about different kind of stuff that they're working on. So hand it over to you, Bob.
Hi, how do you do, everyone? For those of you who are early, my apologies for starting on my spiel too quickly. So I'm Bob Kushevsky. I'm a product manager on the Iris team at InterSystems. I'm here with my colleague, Raj Singh. I'd like to thank Nissan for letting us give you this just kind of quick introduction to Iris and give you a taste of kind of why we're excited about it and why Python developers would really love to build on it. So what is Iris? So InterSystems Iris is a unified data platform. Think of it as a data fabric that supports massively scalable databases. It has built-in analytics and integration and interoperability tools. And of course, it works with all of your modern DevOps tooling. At its core, the Iris database engine is both highly performant and massively scalable. It has unique data structures that are highly efficient and highly flexible. And so it lets you scale your database both vertically and horizontally. We like to say that there's no problem that's too big for Iris. What makes it really cool is the multi-model capability. That is, you can access your data through multiple different data models simultaneously. So an object database or a relational database or a document or key value, these aren't separate databases in the Iris world. This is all just Iris. And so you don't have to spend all of your time figuring out, how do I keep all these different databases in sync, or how do I keep my Redis cache clean, and all of that stuff. You don't think about it at all because you don't do any of that. You just let the Iris data fabric handle all of that for you. It's incredibly fast, incredibly scalable. One of the other things that is great about Iris is built-in analytics suite. So this is acting as an open analytics platform. It enables you to connect and combine all of your favorite tools and technologies. So you can use kind of InterSystems own built-in analytics with Spark and Tableau and Power BI, all of these other tools that you're accustomed to using. And what really makes this really cool is, for any of you who have had to run a big database before that has both analytics in it and transactions in it, you often end up having to have two separate databases. Don't have to think about that with Iris as well. Again, it scales up really, really nicely. So you don't have to have these separate data systems. You let the data fabric do all of that for you. So that's kind of the quick overview. We've got great APIs. We've got great support for Python. As you think about your new applications, think about building that on InterSystems Iris. You've probably never heard of it. It's been around for actually quite a long time, but it's found its niche in the healthcare business. So if you're not in healthcare or IoT or financial services, you might not have ever heard of it. But it turns out this technology, when I kind of discovered it, I was blown away, and it's just really worth your time to learn it and explore it. So over to you. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, Bob. So people who are interested in IRIS database, check it out. And also people who are looking for the new gig, also apply at InterSystems and talk to Bob.
Talk to me.
Cool. Awesome. So let's get started with our today's event. And as I told you, we're gonna start with first thing, writing a Flask app real quick. And I will also talk about some of these ideas while building the APIs when you are writing a Flask app. Okay. So let me share my screen again and okay. Can you guys see my PyCharm window?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so let's start it. So let's sort of quickly create the app. And first thing we do, first thing we always do is create requirement.txt. So this is where basically we track all the packages that we required and we want to install. So so this is always a good practice to start with. Next thing we require is the main.py. So this is basically kind of entry point for our app when we are getting started. And with that, let's first create all the directory structure so we know that what all files that we need. So this is the entry point and the application that we are working on. So what are we going to do? We're going to build something very simple. We're going to build a API that is about a person, a simple person object, simple one table with person, which will have only two columns, name and email. And we will create the API that will allow us to store the person information in the database and retrieve them. And we're gonna systematically build the whole app. So so first, normally what we do is we're gonna have API written in separate modules. So all the API interface will be built into separate module. Then we'll have one more separate module called model. So model is basically where we, or you can call it entity also. So entity is where we define our person, like what are the fields of the person, and you will use that as a ORM relations to build our table. So within the entity, we'll basically create all these entities that you want to store into database. And in our case, that will be person. And then we will have something called services. Now, in very standard format. So how you basically interact with the database. So when you have API, which is a public facing or which is basically used by like end user, and then you have data, which is sitting in your database. So API and access to data will always happen through a layer called service layer. And service layer basically abstract how we get the data from, what are we getting? So basically services will say that give me something, and service will take care of the business logic where how you get them. So service layer basically abstract out what data we are getting and how data we are getting. So what we are getting will be written in API, like what we want, and we will define into API that what we want and how we want. So that will be based on services. So API will talk to service, say API will say that give me the data, and then service layer basically figure out how to get the data and like what database to talk to and all that kind of stuff. So so for that, we will have services. So this is going to be our main 3 module. And then finally, of course, test. Okay, cool. So first thing, let's start with our app. So we are building Flask App. So for the Flask App, simple, thing is we start with from Flask, import Flask. Is it visible now? Hopefully it is now.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay. I don't know why. It's supposed to. So it is not detecting Flask. Basically, normally automatically install the Flask. So let us just peep install Flask. Okay, that's the problem. Yes. So basically, what mistake I made was requirement was inside the app. It should be like in the top level. So now that because the top level in the file name, so it automatically pick up that, hey, you have Flask is not installed, even though it is defined in requirement.txt. So we say install app and we start installing Flask app. Okay. So two things we'll require for the API. We need Flask, and for the database, we're going to use SQL Alchemy as a database, and SQL Alchemy is a nice API that let us talk to database with a nice layer. So you don't have to worry about different kind of. Let me just check with the spelling. Which kind of database you're using. So basically, SQL Alchemy will abstract out the kind of database that you're using underneath. So with SQL Alchemy, with a simple API, you can use same kind of MySQL database, MariaDB database, SQLite database, MongoDB database. So all kind of database kind of abstract out into simple API. So that's the SQL Alchemy, and we're going to use SQL Alchemy to interact with our database. And for the purpose of this app, because we don't want to like create more complicated, we are not creating separate. We are not using any kind of independent database system. We're going to use something called SQLite, which is basically file based. So you don't have to install anything; it just automatically create everything. So with the Flask SQL Alchemy, we're going to use uh, uh, um, SQLite. So for that, we will create one more file. We're gonna call it DB. And in this file, we're gonna import SQLite. So again, from Flask SQL again, SQLite, SQL Alchemy. Just install. Alchemy. SQL. Come on. Normally just pick it up directly, so I don't have to like manually install things, but it's not picking up, so I have to manually install the whole thing. SQL Alchemy, and we're gonna just create one instance of SQL Alchemy that we will use again. So now we have that. We are going back to main, and so here in the main we will have uh, from DB dot from DB import DB. We just add DB there. So okay, from add.db import DB. Okay. Now what we need right now is we need to create a app, and finally we're gonna use the app. So if underscore name equal to underscore. So why we need to do underscore app underscore main? So because when we run this file, we basically gonna it will basically start executing line one by one, and we don't want to like when you try to cross import certain things, it will create an error and create multiple instance. So there's this is very common problem, and you can just search why you have to cover your app on the under the underscore main, and you will get a lot of answer on the online. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but just that there's a reason why we wrap our run method inside underscore name equal to underscore main. So now let's get back to Flask and just give the name. So this is just because creating an app dot secret key equal to my key. It doesn't matter. Now okay, let's just finish the other thing and then I'll come back. So now that we have created this, so this is the minimum thing that you require to create a Flask app. You want to create an instance of app with the Flask and basically return the app. Now, because we are using database and the database is involved with the Flask, so we have to create a couple of other things to connect the database and Flask app. So we need to do db.init app app and app dot app context db dot create all. Now, why we are doing this? Basically, what we're going to do is we want to create data because we are interacting with database. We need to create database and we need to create tables in the database. And because we are using Flask, there's a way to automatically create database and tables using the model of the entity that you're going to create. So for that reason, every time you start the app, it will create all the required database and tables that is already defined to DB. Now, how so what are all the tables and database that it has to create? So that will be covered into when we define our model, because model is directly connected to database, and when we start the app, it try to read everything and create all the tables and database that is required to build this app. So that we will see as we go forward. Okay, so this is the minimum thing that we need to build an app. Okay, so wait, one more thing. Now we need to also define the a configuration for database. So how how the Flask will know that which database to use. So there's there's always a connection string. So this is kind of connection string to know that, hey, we have to talk to SQLite. So this is the connection database configuration that we have to set. SQL Alchemy database URI, and because we are using SQLite, we're going to use SQLite DE and db.sql DE. Okay. So yeah, this is our query parameter. So this is the minimum thing required for us to create the database. Now let's go and think about the table that we have to create. So for that, we need to go to entities, and we were talking about creating a person. So in the entity, let's say person. Cool. Now class person, and now the class that we are creating here would also be used to create database and tables. So we have to connect them. So how we going to do that? So for that, we're going to use the DB that we that we created. So to connect the whole thing from DB import DB, and then app.db, and then db dot model. So this will be used to basically connect our person class to person table, basically. And now let's what are all entities that we need for our person. So first thing is ID. So ID equal to db dot column, and this column will be integer. So db dot integer, and then this is going, is it the primary key? True. Second thing we need is a name, and that is going to be db dot string. Sorry, db column and db dot string, and and again we also, so nullable. So two things we need to set. First, the size of the string, let's say 200, and is it nullable, equal to false. So because this is the one thing that we don't want, like we want to have at least one thing. So you can't really create the person without name. So that's why we are saying that this is a required field. And email, same thing, db column, db dot string 200, and nullable equal to true. So this can be null. So that is fine. Now, now we have this, and basically this. So now when we start the app, we will basically be able to create database. Okay. Now you will not able to see the database and everything before we actually trigger the whole thing. So so let it be. So right now this is working. This is fine, but you don't know this is fine because we haven't actually written any API to access them. So now let's go and write the APIs. So once we have the API, then we can basically, see that things are moving and running. So so this is the API. So let's call it person. Again, same thing. And now in the Flask, this concept of things called blueprint. Blueprint are basically, so what happens is you can have collections. So let's say there's a person, maybe there's a company, there is something else. So you have different entity, and each entity may have different kind of different set of APIs. So blueprint basically bundle different APIs together to cover them and help them. So this is more about like managing APIs properly than anything else. So but this is very useful when you have huge applications which has huge components and huge number of APIs, and you want to bundle together certain APIs for certain components and stuff like that. So you can put them into a single blueprint. So so let's first need the blueprint. So let's import the blueprint from Flask. Import blueprint, and person blueprint equal to blueprint. We're gonna call this person. Name doesn't matter. It's not gonna make too much difference. And cool. So now let's actually build the API. Actually write the APIs. So how we do that? So for this we need to use the decorator. We will use the decorator person blueprint dot route, and here we define what route it would be. So because this is a person, so we're gonna just say person, and def. Now first thing, when you're creating a route, basically different route will be different actions. So if those who are familiar with the REST API, so REST API use HTTP methods to define different kind of actions on resources. So right now we have person, and on this particular person, we want to perform different operations, which is basically get like person details, create person details, update and delete. So right now we are only going to work with the get and post, which is basically create the person and retrieve the person. So how we do that? So first thing we define the route, and second thing we say that for which method this route is defined. So we say method equal to, and let's say post. Now the post method is going to basically create the person, and then we basically figure out how we're gonna work with the post. So def, and then we need to, um, create person, let's say. And now here we basically write the code that will create the person. Now, right now we just mm, return empty. So we are creating the API here, and basically we are creating the blueprint here, and then later on we will connect this API to the services and services to database. So so first API going to be the create person, and that will be slash person and a post with the post. Same again for uh, get. And so when you're doing get, we can do either get all, or you can get like one person based on ID. So uh, for that, let's say int ID. So this is going to be get one person, get person underscore ID and ID. So what this API basically will do is within the API, you provide the ID of a person in the parameter, and this ID will be used to figure out that one person, and then we will return that person. So this is the get request for like single user or single ID, and then we're going to create the API that will give us all of them. So basically list of persons that we have created so far. So this will be just simple, and same the method equal to get. Def get person. And return. So now we are going to use these three APIs. Now we need to connect this blueprint to our app. So our app basically exposes all these blueprints. So how we do that? So remember the app config. So we are going back here. So now that we have person blueprint, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to main.py, and here we're basically going to import the whole thing. So from app.api.person import, what was the person blueprint, and app.register blueprint, and we're going to say that person blueprint. So now our personal blueprint is registered with the app. So our app can recognize that, hey, we need to use this person blueprint to connect the whole thing. So just to test that the things that we build is working. So for the purpose that I can use get very easily in browser, I'm just going to open a browser and run it quickly. Escape. Okay. So if I say localhost / person / so this is my get request, and port number 5000. Sorry, because by default is 80. So but our app is starting on 5000. So internal server. So basically you can see that we hit the app, but it says API 500. So there is something error because we haven't finished the whole thing. The idea is right now we are able our app is up. We have defined certain route, and that route is being captured by our app. So that was what we want to test, it, that the whole pipeline of blueprint connected to our main app is complete. And then we can talk about how to connect all of this app into with a database. So as I told you that, so now we need the service layer to talk to database and connect to the API. So you can go here and create a service for person. Okay. Class person service. And so what basically we have in the service. So in the service class, basically we want to do all kind of database operation, get like saving, creating, deleting, all kind of operations will define here. Then we'll write down how this operation will be connected to database. So def create So we're gonna have create. We're gonna have retrieve all, and then we're gonna have retrieve, just simple retrieve. So this will have an ID. So retrieve one. So this is a service layer, and basically we're going to use all of them to basically build the API. Now we can basically start building API and or maybe services. So let's start with the services. So first thing is create. So to create the data set, what we need is a database connections, and we're going to use DB to do that operations. So from DB import. So I make this mistake all the time. App.db import db, and then so this is create. So basically, when we are creating something, we need to first create and create the model itself, and then we can use that model to store the whole thing. So we're gonna create like person equal to person model, and then we will once we have that, then we'll use db dot session dot what was the, sorry, give me a sec. db dot session dot, so weird, it's not going, okay, and new person, and session dot commit, and finally once everything's fine, we say return true. We are not doing any try catch here, but just for the reason that it will take a lot of time. So name equal to, we need name, and then we need email equal to email. So these are two things that we need from as API. So name, comma, email, and email can be none. So this is create, and then let's talk about retrieve. So let's like create and retrieves are minimalistic, and we can use that to basically complete our API. Once we get an post, then we can basically go ahead and do our stuff. Okay, cool. We'll come to the one later, but right now, like now that we have these two things, let's go and connect them with our API. So now we have services, so we can basically use the API to build the services. So create person. So first we need is a person service. Person service dot create, and then throw this between try and accept. See, and now we need to retrieve the data of, so this is a post request, and when you are doing the post, you don't have query parameter in the post you'll always have data into the body. When you're making the post request, you always send the data into the body. So we need to retrieve the data from the body. So how are we going to do that? So for that, we just simple do name equal to request is undefined. We need to basically import the request from Flask, and JSON, and then name equal to data of name. So we will collect our name from the data. We'll collect a name, and then email equal to. Sorry, I'm taking significant time for building the API, but I think it's very important to understand how we are writing the code when we write the test. It will be very useful to understand different part and how to use them. And email equal to email. And so this is great. And when it comes to, and so once we have this thing, we need to return the response. So return response. Normally, when you accept some kind of request, you basically, when for the post, the response is always 202, and for the get response is 200. So we are just mimicking that. And in terms when there is an error, we say that response, and we just wrap the error around the string, and then pass the status equal to 422, which is unprocessable entity, and finally get. So this is the last step, and then we're gonna basically try our APIs. So person service equal to person service. So this we need first, and then we just need to get all the data. So this is about the ID. So let's not do this one. Let's do this one, where you get all the data. This will be easier. Person service equal to person service, and dot retrieve all. Data equal to. Now return response, and so accept exception as E, and if there's an error, then typical response str of E, comma status equal to 422. And so when you're retrieving the data, this is basically not the JSON. This is basically data into the entity model format. So we need to basically convert our object into dictionary or JSONify format. So how we do that? So basically, this is a class object, and we need to convert into dictionary. And for that, what we're going to do is result equal to formatter, and we're going to pass the data into our formatter, and basically the formatter will give us the result, which we'll pass here. And the result that we get will be JSON. And when we are basically sending data over the network, we can't really send data over network with the in that we need to encode. Basically, we need to serialize our data when you are sending out over network. So the way to serialize our JSON data is to JSONify, and then you pass in the dictionary, and basically this will convert our dictionary into JSON and send it over the network. Now we have this data coming in as a list of person list, and we need to convert into the actual data. So just the result equal to append list, and for person in person list. Now basically we need to append this result dot append, and Now what we have in our person identity, first thing is ID. So that will come as a person.id. This is how we basically access the the member of the class. So assume person is a class object. So basically we are accessing class object and converting them into JSON format. Name and finally email. Person dot email. Cool. So now we have all that. So now this looks like everything is ready, and let's try experimenting the whole thing. So now that we have APIs ready, we need to call the API. So how are we going to do that? So we're going to use this tool called sorry. Man, I forgot the name. You must be knowing this, the tool that we use for API testing, Postman, sorry. So we're going to use Postman to test our API and see if it works. And then we're going to start testing our APIs. So now, as you saw that the way how we build our APIs, we started with the we started by creating. So our whole project has APIs, service layer, and finally a formatter, and then we are accessing it. So this is something I was testing before. So our app is running on 5,000. Sorry. So first thing I'm gonna do is let's try to get all the data. Let's see what we get. So it says not found. Okay, this extra. So it says null because we don't have any data right now. Now let's first create the data. So for 5,000, what I'm going to create is name and email, and then we say send. So you say accepted. That means our data was accepted, and we can see the log here. So if you see the log, the terminal log, so 404 first time, then 200, okay, because we had this extra slash which was not accepted, and then again 202 when we did post, so everything went well. And then let's try to get the data using get. Okay, didn't came through. What happened? Create person db.session commit. True. Yeah. Let me see if data are coming in. Oh, sorry. We didn't return the result here. So let's see now. Okay, here we go. So I had to restart the app for the new changes. Anyways, so as you can see that we are able to retrieve the data here, and it's coming in the form of list because we can have multiple data. Now let's do another post. Send and get. Say get, we get version. So basically our APIs is working now. So this is the minimum APIs that we can create here. Now up to next phase. So now we have entity, we have services, and we have API. So how we basically test the whole thing. So for the testing, there are two kind of tests basically. One is called black box and white box testing. Black box testing is basically we test from external side. So basically we are testing behavior without checking the code. So functional tests are all about black box testing. where you take the system as a black box, and then you try to interact with the system as an external user and try to see if you are getting the right answer or not. Second is a unit test and integration test. Unit test and integration test are kind of white box testing. So so there are some sub module that we want to test, and we want to say that whether they are behaving as expected or not. Now unit test and integration test and functional test. So what are the main difference between all these three tests and what they basically try to achieve here? So couple of main differences in terms of cost wise. So unit tests are cheap, integration tests are more expensive, and functional tests are super expensive. Now, what does that mean? Basically, if you want to run the unit test, the fundamental thing about unit test is when you're running unit test, your system should not be running. What does that mean? So let's say your system use database, your system use Flask server. So you should not run any of that. That nothing should be running. It should be just plain code sitting, and you are just invoking the test code and you are trying to test the things. So you're not talking to database, you are not talking to other external systems, and you're just testing the certain system. So that's the unit test. In the integration test is basically designed to check whether the integration between two systems are proper or not. More than often, the integration test is going to be between with the database. So if you have database, if you have queue systems, so you're going to do your integration test with those database and queue systems. So your service layer. So if you go by definition, so basically you normally do the integration test with your services, and you basically do it and finally the functional test. So functional test is basically, as I told you, black box. Functional tests are more expensive because you have to like get the whole system up and running and then run the test. So that means every time you want to run function test, you have to up your database, you have to up all the existing external system that you are using, you have to start your app, and like the whole system should be up and running, and then you start your testing. So because of that, there's a more resource involved to keep everything up and running while doing the testing. So that's why it's a more expensive part of testing. And the integration doesn't require all the system, it just requires few of the systems. So that's why integration test is less expensive. But and finally, unit test. In unit test, you have no system up and running. You're literally writing the code and you're trying to test the system, test the certain piece of certain functions or methods that whether they are behaving properly or not. So that is unit integration functional test. Now, one more thing about unit test is so let's say you're trying to test some method that is making external call to database or external call to some methods. Now, as I told you that unit test cannot talk to external database. So how you go with that? So when you're doing unit test, you will use something called mock. Mock is basically a special a kind of mechanism, a set of tool that you import and use, so that what it does is it overrides certain methods and mimic the response. So let's say you have 30 line of formatter method, and that formatter method is making that let's say there is a method in that formatter method called calling database. So if you want to test that formatter that is calling this, that has a method that says calling database, what you want to do, you want to overlap that method, and you want to say that, hey, override the response of that method, and let's test how the behavior look like. So in the unit test, you do a lot of mocking. In the function test, you don't need mocking because everything is up and running and you need to check the system end to end. So in a way that you end up writing more unit test and very less functional test, because cost. And so when you're trying to like check all the corner cases whether they are working or not, you do that in unit test. And when you want to like verify the end-to-end system whether it is working or not, in general you do functional test. Now, how you basically organize all those testing? So within your test, you can get different folder for unit test. You can say unit, integration, and finally functional test. Okay, so let's start with the functional test, and then let's see how much we can cover. So now what we're trying to test here. So when we are doing functional test, we are basically trying to check the API. So we will talk to API and we will make sure that whether the APIs are properly acting or not. And we are not going to worry about, how the things happen. What we are trying to verify is as a external user or external entity that trying to verify whether the system is behaving as it expected or not. We are not looking into how the certain, what is written. We are checking if it's working or not. So, so in the functional, let's create functional and say test API. Now inside the API, so what we want to test? We want to test def test post API. Let's just call it post API. That is fine. Now, when you are writing the post API, so basically you have to have your app up and running. So now we have that up and running. Second thing is what we're gonna do here is we need a client. So this is a server, right? So what we are running right now, Flask, is a Flask server, and we need some kind of client to basically interact with the Flask whole thing. So where do we get the client? We need some kind of API client to talk to API server or test the server. So to get that API client, we need to use within the we will the Flask app comes with the API client. So what we're going to do is client equal to app.main. Damn. Dot create app. Well, let's just import the whole thing. Import app dot main dot from app dot main import create app. Now what our create app retrieves? Create app gives us the app, right? So we have create app that will give us the app, and the app itself we has something called test client. So here we get the client, and now we can use this client to basically do the API call. So now let's do the API call. So response equal to client dot post. Now when you're doing post, so we have person, and now this is the post route. So basically when you're doing post route, you are passing the what we're doing is we are passing the whole content into the body. Now how how we make sure that so what I'm trying to say here is when you're doing the post, what you do is you set the header called content type equal to application JSON, and then you set the body, you send the body in the JSON format. So this is how you basically form your post. One other way is to like use the form data. So basically, form is the other way to form the post request. And if you want to send like a raw body post request, then you can do like this. The application JSON tells that the data is coming in the form of JSON. That's why it is expecting the body with this kind of raw format. So this is this is normally how you do it. You can either do it into form data, or you can do form data will have the key value pair basically, or else you can do the raw. Here we are doing the raw, and because we are doing the raw, we need to set up our client in such a way that he understands that we are doing the application JSON context type equal application JSON kind of post and not form data. So for that, what we have to do is we have to specify our data in form of JSON. Now, now that we have specified data in form of JSON, we just basically need to write down the whole JSON that will go in. So this will be name, email, x@y.com. That also goes into string. Okay. So this is our this is how we form the post request, and what we want to verify is it works fine. So assert is a way to like verify assert. Things is assert basically verify for trueness. So response dot status code equal to 202. So this is something we want to verify. So this is our first test for functional test. Well, this is quite simple actually to write. And now how you do test. Now what you're going to do is something with PyTest. We have covered PyTest in our previous previously when we did our meetup. So, but yeah, PyTest is one of the advanced testing framework that is built on top of default unit test, and yeah, it's really useful and powerful. So I'm not getting into detail of what all you can do. You can go into detail of PyTest in some other my previous tutorial, but let's just assume that we have PyTest. Now again, we need to install the PyTest. So PyTest, and it will automatically pick it up. Yes, install requirement, because PyCharm is smart, and now it let us install Py. Okay, the PyTest is installed. Now, if you go here in the terminal, you can already see that testing app. So our environment is up and running. So we install PyTest in our testing app virtual environment. So we have PyTest. So now let's run PyTest and see what happens. So as you can see that, this, so PyTest, and then this one dot is basically one test. And if you want to learn more, so when you say dash VV, so this basically this, like, detail, like PyTest and detail. So it says that, hey, this was the test and it passed. Now let's extend the test. Now you want to verify the get request, right? So let's do the same. Response equal to client dot get and slash person, and yeah, just that, because we are not expecting anything. And let's do assert response dot status code equal to 200. Let's run the test and let's see what happens. So we can actually break it down into separate tests. I think that is more better way to do than test get API and you can actually use something called fixture to in the PyTest. You can use something called fixture that help you to not write similar setup code all the time, and your fixture will do the setup once, and then you can just keep using them. So now you can see the both are passing. And assert on dot JSON. So let's run this. Let's see what we have here, and then we can basically use that to build a response. So in the response of JSON, we are supposed to have a list, and then the list will have basically this dictionary. And we also have ID. So basically, let's see what happens. Okay, so basically we end up creating so many keys. Assert error. So as you see right now, it's telling us, so why this is happening is because we are basically not setting up the test. So what supposed to happen is we can create a fixture. I'll probably do another tutorial where we talk about fixture, and in the each fixture, which is basically test setup, we can set up the test and set up test and destroy test, where every time you set up a test, you create a new app, new user, and then you try to basically run all these things, and finally you tear down once the test is done. But this is basically how you write your test. Sorry guys, I plan to so I think it's about the time. So I will continue the part 2 in the next lesson, where we'll continue from where we left, and I will from the same piece of code, everything same. We're gonna continue where we're left, and in next one, now that we have an app and we have write a couple of basic tests, in the next meetup, we will try to finish this whole thing, and we'll write more tests, unit test, functional test, and we'll also talk deeper about the fixture that will help us to how PyTest will help us write fixture, and how we can use fixture to basically deduplicate a lot of test code and stuff like that. So so guys, that's all. I will continue this tutorial in our next meetup, and this next meetup will not be 1 month away, because this is continuation. So I'll probably set either next week or next to next week, and then we can continue from there. So thank you very much for joining today, and then let's continue either next week or next to next week and finish the whole testing part. So thank you very much. The video recording and the slides, I'm going to create the code and slides available through our GitHub page, and you can access everything on our GitHub page. I'll send out an email regarding all the content once they are ready and uploaded everywhere. So thank you guys, and let's catch up again and finish the whole thing. Thank you.